down the border from illegal immigration, from drugs coming into this country, and make sure we know who's coming and why they're coming.
Sarah Sanders earlier hinting at a compromise as Friday's looming government shutdown deadline is drawing near. Their position characterized as extremely flexible today by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. But the impasse over border funding on Capitol Hill is raging on tonight, with Democrats saying no thanks to the GOP's latest offer. Here now on that, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He serves on both the Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thank you for being here. Good to have you here tonight. So what's the parameters of the deal that you don't like, and why don't you like it?
Well, Martha, I'm so encouraged to hear that we're actually beginning to make progress here. In recent days, the only person who has said publicly they were cheering for a shutdown was President Trump, who is insisting on $5 billion this year in additional wall investments, or he was threatening to shut down the government over the holidays. Now we're beginning detailed negotiations about what more might be needed in order to get a border security investment that the president would accept and that would allow us to complete our appropriations work for this year. On a bipartisan basis, we've made more progress and gotten farther in our annual appropriations process this year than any of the 8 years I've been here. That's something I know Majority Leader McConnell and Minority Leader Schumer have wanted us to complete that work this year.
Well, let me ask you,
where
because
I have a problem.
Go ahead.
Where I have a problem is with the proposal for an undefined billion-dollar slush fund that the president could spend any way he chose on internal enforcement, on hiring more agents, on building border wall. I think you just ran a clip from Senator Collins of Maine talking about a 10-year plan costing in total $25 billion that would be managed by the Department of Homeland Security over a decade. That was part of a broad, bold bill on immigration that I voted for and co-sponsored earlier this year, but it accomplished some other big things in immigration reform.
So you like the bill that Collins proposed, and I'm going to play
Yes.
it because you were listening to it in the break with me. So let's play it so everyone else can hear it.
Great, thank you.
I've urged the administration and some of my colleagues to take a look at a plan that we put together earlier this year that would give the president the full $25 billion that he wants for border security that goes beyond just the physical barriers like the wall, and divide that up in $2.5 billion a year, which is what I believe the Department of Homeland Security can efficiently spend and wisely spend.
All right, so that's $25 billion over a period of time, over 10 years.
10 years, right.
46 of the 49 Democratic senators were in favor of it. We also remember another moment in time when Democrats were in favor of $25 billion to spend on border security. So why is 5 such a big hurdle, A, and B, can the plan described by Susan Collins pass?
Well, the only reason the plan described by Susan Collins, the bill that I worked with her on and co-sponsored, didn't pass was because of active lobbying against that bill by President Trump and a number of conservative Republican senators. That got 52 votes on the floor of the Senate, it got 54 votes on the floor of the Senate earlier this year. It also had a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. So it was a broad bill that had detailed plans, not just for a single concrete wall across the whole border, but for investments in monitoring security, in double fencing, in new roads.
I can't help but think, it always sounds to me, when you really break down what the president says, he talks about using technology, he talks about it sounds like you're all talking about the same thing. Democrats say we want border security.
Yes.
And the president says he wants a secure border. So both sides want it so that people aren't climbing over the fences and, putting small children under the walls so that there's entry points. So why can't you all just get together and work this out?
That's a great question, Martha. I'll tell you, the only person who was saying I have to have $5 billion or I'm going to shut down the government this week was President Trump.
But he's not saying that now.
Hopefully,
not saying that now, much
Martha,
to the dismay of some of his supporters.
At this point, having moved past that, we can reach an accommodation that has a defined plan for what it is the money will be invested in that will actually contribute to border security. To the extent we're talking about a single concrete wall, that doesn't have support broadly enough to get through the Senate and the House.
What difference does it make what it's made of? This is another thing I don't understand. People say, oh, well, the money that was spent, it wasn't spent on a wall. It was spent on shoring up a very strong fence. Looks like a wall. I was there. It looked like a wall. So what difference does it make what the word is, what you call it?
What matters is whether the money's being spent wisely and efficiently or not, if it works or if it doesn't. And one of the things I commend Senator Collins for really focusing on in our immigration policy working group earlier this year, which had 24 senators participating at different points, was getting the Department of Homeland Security to come in and describe to us what they can efficiently spend per year, what kinds of technologies they want to deliver, and then had accountability back to the Senate for reporting what they spent it on and what the outcome was. What is the latest proposal on the table today was another $1 billion in addition to the $1.6 billion that's in the bill now that would just be money that the president could spend as he wished. And some oversight and some accountability is appropriate here.
So the money that's spent on illegal immigration goes way over what is being proposed for a border wall. Does that bother you? I mean, the concern about the money being spent just seems kind of it seems willy-nilly. It seems like if you don't like an idea, then you don't want to spend the money. But everybody spends so much money all the time.
I'm one of the senators who has worked tirelessly with Republican colleagues to come up with a bipartisan solution to our broken immigration system. That includes making progress on resolving the status of folks who are here through things like the Dreamer program and investing in border security. I do think we can get this done in a bipartisan way. Let me take one moment before we end and give some hope to your viewers. The first vote has just been called a few minutes ago in a comprehensive criminal justice reform bill. This is a bill that has the sponsorship or the support of the Fraternal Order of Police, of the National Association of Evangelicals, of Catholic Charities, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Heritage Action, and the ACLU. You've got Republicans and Democrats in the Senate and the House supporting this bill. I expect it will pass later tonight after 6 votes, and President Trump has said he will sign it. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, was a key force in getting this bill to this point. I think this will make a real difference in making our criminal justice system at the federal level focus more on reducing sentences, making sure that folks who belong in jail are in jail, and those who can be improved in terms of their behavior and who can return to society safely. It gives an opportunity for a relief valve for folks who are currently serving overly long sentences for minor nonviolent drug-related crimes. I think this is a big step forward, and I just hope that while we're arguing over spending and over budget, over border security, I just wanted your viewers to know there is also significant progress being made tonight on a bipartisan bill that has been years in the making and has broad support.
Thank you. We're watching it. We had a live picture up of that vote as it's going on, and we're going to continue to have live coverage of it throughout the evening. We're also going to get Ben Shapiro to weigh in on that bill as well in a little while. Senator Coons, always good to talk to you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Martha.
Welcome back to Hannity. A partial government shutdown looms ahead of Friday's deadline. The Democrat hysterics have already begun. Republicans offered to compromise on the amount of funding for the wall, but the Democrats immediately rejected that deal. Earlier tonight, President Trump tweeted, quote, "The Democrats are saying loud and clear that they do not want to build a concrete wall, but we are not building a concrete wall. We are building artistically designed steel slats so that you can easily see through it. It will be beautiful and at the same time give our country the security that our citizens deserve. It will go up fast and save us billions of dollars a month once completed." Joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributor Charles Hurt, GOPAC chairman David Avella, and former Clinton pollster and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Okay, Doug, now you were laughing here. Now, the wall with the beautiful slats, are you questioning whether we're actually going to get that?
I don't think we're going to get the wall. I mean, I think the deal that should have been done last week was the $1.6 billion in border security, fund the government, and move forward. I think this is, frankly, a setback for the cause of border security and building the wall. and also a setback for democracy, because the fact that we can't fund the government, and I understand it's only a partial shutdown we're facing, but this is pathetic.
Well, but you know what? This isn't Trump's fault. I mean, at the end of the day, David Avella, I mean, what we're talking about is border security, which has been kicked down the road since, actually, I think 1986, but, you know, last I remember is 2006. And, you know, now what we've got are Schumer and Pelosi saying it's a non-starter, it's not happening, you're not getting the wall. Are we getting the wall?
Ed, to your point there, Judge, that here you have a preview of what the next 2 years is going to be like. Look, over the last 2 years, we had 10 Senate Democrats in states that President Trump won. It was in their interest to find common ground with the president. Going into the 2020 elections, there's two: Doug Jones of Alabama and Gary Peters of Michigan. There are less Democrats now willing to work with the president on border security, on health care, on the economy. Why? Because it's in their interest to obstruct and investigate and ultimately seek to impeach the president.
You know, Charles, the idea of the $1.6 billion from I think it was last week that, you know, the DEMS shot down, and now what we've got is the president through Sarah Sanders suggesting that there is money from other departments that can be transferred so that he can build the wall. Specifically from Homeland Security and I believe the Pentagon. Is that viable?
Well, I think that if you talk to people, that have studied this for a long time, and as you point out, Judge, this is a problem that has been kicked down the road since 1986. The lawmakers in Washington refused to fix the problem that they promised to fix back then. But funding the wall has never been the real big problem here. And the real problem is the will to actually do the hard work of putting up a wall and taking those votes. The only thing we have found out in the last 2 weeks is that Democrats that are coming into control the House and the Senate in Congress have vowed to shut the government down instead of doing something about fixing the border. And whether you call it a wall or a fence or what, the President Trump's wonderful description of it through those tweets you just read, whatever you call it, it is a barrier that prevents people from illegally crossing into the United States. And Democrats have made it very clear that they are on the side of opposing that. And President Trump and Republicans have made it very clear they're on the side of supporting that. And even Democrats who supported, say, the 1996 or the 2006 Fence Act, which did basically the same thing, which was to build a barrier to keep people from sneaking into the country illegally, even a lot of those Democrats have now been pulled by the left wing of their party over into this no borders, anti-ICE, sanctuary city crowd that opposes doing anything about the border.
And you know, Doug, the idea of a wall, a secure fence from 2006, you had Schumer, Pelosi, Obama, they were all, you know, singing the cheers of it. The American people are not stupid. Right. They are in favor of a border. Right. They understand we need to be a sovereign nation. Right. In essence, what they're saying is we're going to obstruct, we're proud to obstruct, and they're almost going against the American people as well.
There's one other component of this you haven't mentioned, Judge, is we have 11 million people who are here illegally. We need a pathway to citizenship and a wall. We need border security. We need a compromise. And that's what politics is about when you have divided government, which we will have in a couple of weeks.
And that's what the president did when he offered DACA to 1.8 million DACA kids, which is double what
Obama
Mr.
did. President.
And yeah, but you know what? Well, he was negotiating in good faith and they didn't buy it. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Who is he's the co-author of the original piece on the dossier, right? He gave that interview yesterday, admitting again that, well, I guess really for the first time he gave an extensive interview about this. He said, when you actually get into the details of the Steele dossier, the specific allegations, we have not seen the evidence to support them. In fact, there's good grounds to think that some of the more sensational allegations will never be proven and likely are false. He said in an interview yesterday to Yahoo News.
Yep. And it's not just the Moscow hotel room stuff, which the top intelligence chiefs briefed the president-elect on. It's other stuff. Remember Michael Cohen? Michael Cohen in the dossier is close to Trump. He allegedly meets in Prague with Russian representatives for the purpose of paying off the Russians in return for their hacking. I mean, this was a clear quid pro quo. We'll pay you for all this hacking you've done on our behalf. And Michael Cohen says, wait a minute, I was never in Prague. This literally did not happen. And now Michael Cohen has been investigated up one and down the other, has been charged, has pleaded guilty, and has been sentenced. And amazingly enough, the prosecutors who have looked at him, both in the special counsel's office and the Southern District of New York, have not said a word about this Prague stuff. What does that tell you?
Well, and remember, for all of the sanctimony that we heard from from Comey yesterday, he has already admitted that the FBI failed to verify the Steele dossier. That the same dossier they used to obtain a spy warrant on Trump's aide, Carter Page.
Correct.
He's already admitted that. They didn't verify it. So what does that tell you about what Comey wanted? They wanted to get into Trump's finances. This was all about getting into Trump's finances and getting into documents and discovery, so you could dig into documents of people's emails and find something to get this man out of office. I am convinced that this, from the very beginning, was a fishing expedition on false pretenses.
And by the way, how do we know about that FISA warrant and the use of the dossier? We know because the House Intelligence Committee under Devin Nunes pushed and pushed and pushed. The intelligence community screamed bloody murder, said the world would end if that were ever revealed. It took President Trump personally ordering it's being made public for us to even know that. And there is still stuff we don't know about this that they're telling us we can't know. So remember, the reason we know about what Comey and the FBI did here is because Republicans in Congress have pulled it out of them. And you should remember that every time you listen to James Comey talk.
We're talking to Byron York here on the Laura Ingraham Show. This is another part of the Comey gaggle outside of the hearing room yesterday.
Of the Republicans who are remaining in the House next session, do you see any taking that mantle, coming up and defending the FBI, taking on the president?
Not yet. To my view, to their everlasting shame, I hope they'll overcome that and realize someday they got to explain to their grandchildren what they did today.
Everlasting shame. Boy, is that gaslighting, Byron? The everlasting shame.
No kidding. I mean, what they did today, you mean question James Comey? Was that the problem? Maybe there's a lot of stuff to ask James Comey about. What about those memos he wrote about his discussions with the president and his decision to leak one of them to the New York Times, to a friend who then gave it to the New York Times? I mean, it is not questioning America. It is not betraying your country to ask James Comey why he leaked this memo to the New York Times. So it was just a crazy statement. I will say, we should say this came out, or Comey was talking in part in context to the president's tweet about Michael Cohen being a rat, and you shouldn't say that kind of stuff.
No,
shouldn't say that kind of stuff.
Now we're going to get into that with Andy McCarthy, but he always see the president, and this is frustrating. Eternally frustrating. Get eternal shame. Eternally frustrating to those of us who see what happened here. It's clear as a bell to me what happened here from the beginning. They wanted an insurance policy from Strzok and Page, working with McCabe and all these people, that this was never going to happen. That Trump would never get elected. They wanted an insurance policy. So they thought they had one, and then he gets elected anyway. And then all of a sudden, they're like, whoa, okay, that Steele dossier, wait, we got to go, let's brief Trump. He's going to freak out about it. We'll leak it. Then this gets the whole ball rolling. We'll keep monitoring these individuals, and then we'll be able to, conflict old Sessions out of the picture, get Flynn tied up in a stupid interview, in which he didn't lie, in my view, and it'll just then the investigation will crush him. But the rat
point.
stuff just undercuts his point.
Remember that the dossier stuff, Christopher Steele had desperately tried to get American journalists to write about it. And they knew it wasn't verified, and they knew it was obviously sensational, and they didn't write about it. Steele couldn't get it into the press. Even David Corn wouldn't come out and just do the whole thing. He sort of wrote around it a little bit, as did Michael Isikoff. The way it got into the news was when the nation's top intelligence chiefs decided to brief the president-elect on it. And you think, wow, if it's so important that the top intelligence officers brief the president-elect, that's news, and that is legitimate. I mean, the fact that they did that made it news. So that was the way of getting the dossier into the public discussion. And for an hour or two, some news organizations were saying, well, this is this collection of unverified allegations. And BuzzFeed finally said, oh, come on, here it is. Let everybody see it. And it's been a good thing that we've been able to see it, because you could see how preposterous so much of it was. And then we learned later on that the FBI made efforts to verify this and was never able to.
No. And Michael Isikoff went on to say all the signs to me are that Mueller's reaching his end game. We may see less than many people want him to find, saying that why was Cohen not charged with lying about, the collusion, Prague, all this stuff. So, but but that's okay. They have a campaign finance violation. It's just ridiculous. Byron York, Byron, you have to come on the podcast.